Okay, welcome back. Now we're looking at the Ds, and it's not a big section, so this should be pretty quick as well. The Cs wasn't particularly big, so I'm going to start with the Dandy Warhols. And I actually grabbed one that I think came after. I've got two albums. This one, okay, that's the one I wanted to start with. I've turned them upside down, so I can't really see what I'm looking at. But this one is 13 Tales from Urban Bohemia. All of these titles, by the way, will be listed below in the description. This is the one that had their sort of breakout hit, Bohemian Like You, which you may have heard. They're pretty cool. I really like Godless, which is the opening track. And I mentioned Brian Jonestown Massacre under the Bs, and that there was this documentary called Dig. I don't think I linked to it then, but I might link to it now. Don't hold me to that, though. But go and look for Dig, and just put in Dandy Warhols Dig documentary. And they had this rivalry with the Brian Jonestown Massacre. They were friends. They started off friends. But then, of course, the Dandy Warhols, they had some ascension in the sort of pop world. So they crossed over a little bit. Whereas Brian Jonestown Massacre always stayed within that alternative indie, didn't quite get the same amount of attention. And so I guess it was a little bit of jealousy. But of course, their music, Dandy Warhols that is pretty poppy. It's really, it is quite hipster. I think they're quite self-conscious about that. With 13 Tales from Urban Bohemia, you would expect that it's got a bit of a hipster tinge to it, and kind of cool. It's sort of party music. There's some sampling in one of the tracks from this one, which is Welcome to the Monkey House. Now, I'm not sure if that immediately follows up, but it does come after 13 Tales from Urban Bohemia. At least I hope so. I might be telling lies there. And they have a track here that, now, can I find it quickly? You Were the Last High. It was a pretty popular hit. And there was one in which they sampled David Bowie, and that's a good track as well. It sort of stands out. I think that's from Ashes to Ashes. Again, don't quote me on that. I'm trying to do this on the fly. But this is another pretty good album. I think Dandy Warhols are quite solid. Again, I haven't kept up with them. I just have two albums. Have a listen to them. See if you like them. It's not a must-have, but they are pretty cool. The documentary is interesting. They don't get shown in too good a light, which is maybe, I don't want to say that that's a spoiler. I just think that, obviously they had a lot more success in terms of international attention and probably monetary success as well to the Brian Jonestown Massacre. Now, next is a group that I think is quite popular in sort of alternative indie circles, and that is Death Cab for Cutie. So if you're interested in alternative music, you'll probably have already heard of Death Cab for Cutie. Sometimes it's hard to say these names. Death Cab for Cutie. And, an odd name. So I don't know how bands come up with some of these names, but they're fantastic. And it is sometimes a little on the sort of self-reflective, introverted, I don't want to say navel-gazing. There's all sorts of terms that kind of can put people off. It's like there can be melancholic, but also very beautiful songs, and some upbeat numbers too. So that's kind of what I like about a lot of the music we have, is that, I've said this before, there's instrumentation and there's also singing. There's also, when there is singing all the way through, there's upbeat, joyous songs, and then there's sort of downbeat, introspective, melancholic songs. And I like an album to have sort of that spectrum within the one album. Another one, that one was something about airplanes, and this is Transatlanticism. And I'm trying to think which is the standout one. I think it might be Transatlanticism, but of course that's always an opinion as to what somebody's favourite is. This is Plans. And I think Plans is quite well regarded, but yeah, do go have a look and have a listen, but have a look at any of the ranking sites, and they often give you an idea of sort of overall what people consider to be the best album, because Death Cab for Cutie are quite prolific. I've got 4 albums, so I'm obviously going to suggest that there are something, and I'll just put this up here. they are a band to consider to have in your alternative indie collection. If this is new to you, if it's not, if you already know about them, then you'll be, hopefully impressed with how many I have. Or you want to point out to me, you don't have this, you should get this, because I'm sure there's gaps in my collection throughout. And then finally, not finally, I've got a few more, but for the jewel cases, there's the Detroit Cobras. And this has kind of got a bit of a rockabilly, if you can see, I'm trying to avoid the glare. If you see them there, they look like they're into having a good time. And it's got that vibe, I mean, with her smoking on the cover. It's quite rocking, kind of got a punky aesthetic, if I can say that. And it's not something I listen to so much these days, because I'm kind of on a bit of a mellow kick. I think our house has got enough activity and chaos going on with two small kids that really the music I tend to gravitate towards these days is more mellow. Having said that, though, once I get to prog rock, you'll probably see that there is that room for more adventurous, aggressive sounding music. So in the meantime, I'll just finish on Voche. And again, Voche's kind of, it's interesting, I've got it in the alternative section. I think it is classed as alt rock, but it's got a little bit of a world folk vibe to it, sort of like gypsy music sound to it, because I think, it's things that get into that, put it in that category sometimes are just accordions. The use of organs, the use of mandolins or ukuleles, things like that. I'm not saying that's what they use in this, but they've definitely got they've got an accordion sound that's kind of got that sense of some sort of street busker, but it's more lush than that. So Voche is worth checking out. This is a mad and faithful telling. I think, you can sort of sometimes get an idea of what the music's like by looking at the cover, but you might have looked at this and thought, oh, that looks like prog rock, that looks like death metal, that looks like, what is it? Because it kind of could read like that, but it's got a real sort of folky European gypsy sound to it. And, there's some bands that do that, like Beirut. He sort of does go down that kind of experimental path using all sorts of traditional sounding music, or traditional sounding instruments, I should say. Now, this is the album that we got because of the use of How It Ends. And I first saw it actually in an ad for a video game. And then we saw it or heard it being used in Little Miss Sunshine, the movie Little Miss Sunshine. So they actually used quite a few tracks from this album, How It Ends, and that appears throughout Little Miss Sunshine. So you may be familiar with some of the tracks, except they don't have the lyrics. There's a mix there. I think there's some instrumentals on here, but a lot of it has got singing, and yet in Little Miss Sunshine it was all instrumental. So it's a beautiful song, How It Ends, and then there's a few others in there. And like I say, it's still got that East European sound, I guess. It's like, if I can try and describe it that way, it's definitely got that, it's like a travelling band sound. Hopefully that doesn't put you off. It's really hard. I didn't want to do too much of the describing of the music. Again, have a look at the list and go and check it out on Spotify and see if you like it. Check out the track How It Ends. If you like that, give the rest of the album a go. I've said this before and I'll just repeat it. I'm really into having, when you spend the money to own, the item and to have a physical copy of something, you sort of want the whole album experience. So we're making the effort to sort of find and buy albums that we can listen to all the way through. It's not a case of picking and choosing. It's like these are solid albums in my opinion. That's just my opinion. And I'm hoping to help those of you who are interested in a physical collection to start building one. So that's the D's, and come back soon for the next set. I know looking at it that I'm going to be collapsing into, I think I don't even have any E's or F's in alternative. I think it's straight into G's and so on. So yeah, please come back, and thank you for watching this, and keep watching, and we'll see you soon.